The thing about America's most expensive shield is that it only works if the enemy plays by the old rules, and Iran just rewrote every single one of them. Right now, as you're watching this, the United States is reckoning with something that defense planners have quietly feared for decades. The moment when a $500 drone looks a billion-dollar radar system in the eye and wins. Not in a simulation, not in a think tank white paper, in real life, in Jordan, in March of 2026, the most sophisticated missile defense architecture the world has ever seen. The Terminal High Altitude Area Defense System, what we call THAAD, had its eyes gouged out by what is essentially a flying lawnmower engine attached to wings and a warhead. And the United States confirmed it. That confirmation alone should stop you cold. Because what happened in the opening days of this Iran war is not just a military story. It is a story about power, about illusion, about the gap between what we've been told our defenses can do and what they can actually do when the enemy refuses to send us a ballistic missile and instead sends us a swarm. This is the story they don't want to bury in the back pages, and tonight we are not going to let them. Let's start with what actually happened, because the details matter enormously here, and the details are stunning. On February 28, 2026, the United States and Israel launched what's being called Operation Epic Fury, a major military campaign against Iran. Within hours of that campaign beginning, Iran did not flinch. Iran did not simply absorb the strikes and wait. Iran struck back, and it struck back in a way that revealed something deeply uncomfortable about the architecture of American military power in the Middle East. Iranian drones and missiles began systematically targeting not American planes, not American soldiers first, not the obvious targets. They targeted the eyes, the sensors, the radars, the very nervous system that makes the entire American missile defense network function. And they did it across 7 countries simultaneously. Jordan, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, Bahrain, Kuwait, radar installations across all of them hit within days. But the one that confirmed America's worst-kept vulnerability was in Jordan at Muwafaq Salti Air Base, where an AN/TPY-2 X-band radar and the critical sensor that gives a THAAD battery its ability to see and track incoming threats was struck and destroyed. Now let's be precise about what that radar is, because this matters to every single American who pays taxes and who has been told for decades that we have the best missile defense system money can buy. The AN/TPY-2 is not just a piece of hardware. It is the brain of a THAAD battery. The radar acts as an essential sensor forming the detection backbone of the THAAD missile defense system. Without it, if you can take out the radar, you take out its eyes and it disables the whole THAAD battery. If it doesn't know where to shoot, if it can't see the threats coming in, it cannot direct the interceptors to go get them. That is a direct quote from Tom Caraco, the director of the Missile Defense Project at the Center for Strategic and International Studies. Not a fringe analyst, not a political commentator, one of the most respected missile defense experts in Washington. And what he is describing is exactly what Iran executed in the opening days of this war. They didn't try to outmuscle THAAD. They blinded it. The destruction of the radar is expected to significantly reduce the utility of THAAD systems to provide defense against Iranian missile attacks. Now, here is the cost calculation that should make every American's jaw drop. Each AN/TPY-2 radar costs approximately $500 million, according to publicly available Department of Defense documents. Some cost estimates go even higher. Cost estimates for the AN/TPY-2 have ranged from $550 million to $1 billion, which may depend on its configuration and support packages, making it the most valuable air defense radar operated by the U.S. Army. And it was reportedly destroyed by single-use attack drones that cost approximately $20,000 to $60,000, depending on the model. Let that ratio sink in. $500 million on one side of the ledger, $20,000 on the other. That is not a military story. That is an economic story. That is a story about what happens when the rules of engagement are rewritten by the side that has less to lose financially and more to gain strategically. And this wasn't limited to Jordan. According to available imagery, Iran and its proxies have targeted radar systems in at least 7 Middle Eastern countries, including damage to multiple AN/TPY-2 radar systems, which support THAAD missile defense systems, and an AN/FPS-132 phased array radar in Qatar. That Qatar radar, a fixed installation unlike the mobile THAAD system, was a $1.1 billion system, an early warning radar designed to detect long-range threats, damaged in the early days of the war. An ABC News analysis of satellite imagery and verified videos suggests that at least 10 radar sites have been struck by Iranian drones or missiles since the start of the war, including apparent damage to radar systems that rely on rare components and cost hundreds of millions of dollars. 10 sites. That is not a lucky strike. That is a strategy. A deliberate, coordinated, systematic strategy to dismantle the sensory architecture of the most expensive regional military umbrella ever assembled by the United States of America. Now think about the geography here for a second, because geography is everything in this story. This radar was at the Muwafaq Salti Air Base in Jordan, over 500 miles from Iran. Over 500 miles away, Iranian drones crossed international borders, flew hundreds of miles, and found a specific piece of equipment inside a fortified American military installation and destroyed it. And that base is not some remote outpost. The base is currently home to over 60 American aircraft deployed to the region, including F-35 Lightning II, F-15E Strike Eagles, and EA-18G Growler electronic warfare aircraft. Think about that. 60-plus advanced American warplanes sitting on that base. Growler electronic warfare aircraft, specifically designed to disrupt enemy communications and radar. And Iran still managed to take out the THAAD radar sitting right there among all of that firepower and sophistication. That tells you something profoundly important about the nature of drone warfare in 2026. The cost of access to precision destruction has collapsed to a point where a low-flying, cheap, mass-produced drone can slip beneath the threshold of an air defense system designed to defeat ballistic missiles traveling at Mach 8. Here's the structural problem that this war is now exposing in real time, and it is a problem that goes far beyond Iran, far beyond the Middle East, and lands directly on the front door of American strategic planning for the next 50 years. Traditional air defense systems struggle with large drone swarms due to interceptor costs and magazine depth limitations. What does that mean in plain language? It means that the systems we built to stop missiles, sophisticated, expensive, brilliant engineering, were not built to stop 100 cheap drones coming at them from multiple directions at the same time. And the cost disparity is not just uncomfortable, it is existential for the current model of American air defense. Drone swarms have fundamentally shifted the cost-benefit analysis in military strategy. Traditional deterrents, such as HIMARS, Tomahawks, and SM-6 missiles, come with staggering price tags running into millions per unit. In stark contrast, swarms of expendable drones offer an affordable, versatile, and resilient alternative. And the interceptor cost problem has already shown up in this conflict in a way that should alarm every single defense policymaker in Washington. The U.S. Army expended over 150 anti-ballistic missile interceptors from the THAAD system to intercept Iranian ballistic missile attacks during the 12-day conflict in June 2025, depleting over 25% of its total global arsenal. Each THAAD interceptor launch costs approximately $15.5 million, 25% of the entire American THAAD interceptor arsenal, gone in 11 days of fighting the previous year. And now a second, even more intense conflict with Iran has begun in 2026. A report by the Washington Post said the U.S. and Israel are burning through their supply of Tomahawk and interceptor missiles. An official told the Post that the number of Tomahawks left in the Middle East is alarmingly low. Alarmingly low. Those are the words of a U.S. official speaking about the most powerful navy in human history. Alarmingly low. What Iran has done, and what American military strategists have known theoretically for years but have now been forced to confront in practice, is weaponize the economics of asymmetric warfare to a degree that has never been operationalized quite like this before. Iran doesn't need to rely on its ballistic missiles to strike these systems. Its Shahed attack drones have shown how capable they are in battle. Flying low and slow, drones have also struck targets across the Middle East, from critical infrastructure like airports to civilian targets like hotels. Flying low and slow, that is the key phrase. THAAD is designed for high-altitude interception. It is an exo-atmospheric and high endo-atmospheric system. It engages threats at altitudes up to 150 kilometers, the edge of space. A Shahed drone flies at maybe 100 to 200 meters above the ground. It is not in THAAD's lane. It was never designed to be in THAAD's lane. And that gap between what THAAD can shoot at and what drones fly at, is exactly the vulnerability Iran has exploited with devastating precision. And there is another layer to this that the mainstream conversation keeps dancing around but never quite confronts directly. According to reports, Iran has been receiving intelligence from Russia about troop deployment and other targets. That intelligence, along with open source data, has provided Iran with pinpoint coordinates of targets. Russia. That word sits in the middle of this story like a stone you didn't notice until you tripped over it. The Russia-Iran partnership in this war is not incidental. It is structural. Russia has spent 4 years in Ukraine learning exactly how to defeat Western air defense systems, exactly how to exploit their blind spots, exactly how to use drone saturation to overwhelm layered defenses. And that knowledge, paid for in Ukrainian blood and Russian treasure, is now being shared with Iran and applied against American systems in the Middle East. This is not a regional conflict anymore. This is a real-time stress test of the entire Western defense architecture conducted simultaneously on 2 continents by 2 adversaries who are learning from each other's battlefields. Now let's talk about what this means for the broader American position in the world, because this is where the geopolitical implications start to ripple outward in ways that are going to define the next decade of global power. The United States has built its entire regional presence in the Middle East on the foundation of military superiority. The idea, the bedrock idea, is that no adversary would dare strike American installations directly because the cost would be too catastrophic, the retaliation too overwhelming. That deterrence framework is now being actively tested and found wanting in real time. Because only about 10 ANTPY-2 radar systems are believed to exist globally, the destruction of the Jordan-based unit introduces operational uncertainty into the missile defense architecture, protecting Jordan, Israel, and other regional assets during a period of heightened strategic tension. 10 systems in the entire world, and one of them is now a pile of blackened debris in the Jordanian desert. The rarity of these systems creates a replacement problem that money alone cannot immediately solve. These are not off-the-shelf components. They require specialized manufacturing, specialized expertise, specialized supply chains that take years, not weeks, to mobilize. The destruction of the radar is expected to significantly reduce the utility of THAAD systems to provide defense against Iranian missile attacks, and the Iranian Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps is expected to continue to target key air defense radars operated by the U.S. and its strategic partners across the Middle East, which the United States may struggle to replenish. And in the meantime, what fills that gap? The loss of the radar will require missile interception duties to fall onto Patriot systems, for which PAC-3 missiles are already in short supply, prompting concerns about stockpiles of advanced interceptors running low. Think about what that means in sequence. THAAD radar goes down. Interception duty falls to Patriot. Patriot interceptors are already running low, and Iran keeps sending waves of drones and missiles. Each American interceptor fired costs millions. Each Iranian drone costs tens of thousands. Iran can sustain this economically in ways that are genuinely difficult for the United States to match in the short term. This is not a criticism of American military capability. It is a structural observation about what asymmetric warfare at scale actually looks like when it's executed with intelligence and discipline rather than desperation. Iran is not winning this war in a conventional sense, but Iran is winning the war of costs, the war of attrition, the war of perception. And in geopolitics, perception is often the most durable form of power. There are profound lessons in this moment for how America thinks about its $3 billion THAAD shield and the doctrine built around it. Protecting defenses requires a layered approach, combining kinetic interceptors, jamming, and directed energy, such as high-powered lasers, along with microwave systems and camouflage. Unlike missiles or lasers, which target drones one by one, high-powered microwave systems emit bursts of powerful electromagnetic energy that can disable the electronics of multiple drones simultaneously, making them ideal for countering swarm tactics by offering rapid, wide-area neutralization without expending costly interceptors. That is the intellectual direction defense planners know they need to move in. Directed energy, high-powered microwave systems, lasers that cost cents per shot rather than millions per interceptor. Iron Beam achieved its first operational combat use in October 2024, intercepting 40 Hezbollah UAVs at $3.50 per shot versus Iron Dome's $40,000 to $50,000 per interceptor, $3.50 per shot, versus $15.5 million per THAAD interceptor. The math is not subtle. The math is screaming. But here's what makes this moment so historically consequential, and why you need to understand it, not just as a news story, but as a civilizational inflection point. The drone swarm is not a technology that belongs exclusively to state actors anymore. The proliferation of cheap, capable, autonomous, and semi-autonomous drones is accelerating across every theater of global conflict. Ukraine learned it. Russia learned it. Iran learned it. Ukraine has been building thousands of cheap but powerful drones designed to shoot down Russian attack drones before they reach their targets, operated by pilots tracking them on a monitor. Each one is priced at about $1,000 to $2,000, a fraction of the several million dollars it costs to manufacture, transport, and fire a high-tech U.S. interceptor. $1,000 against millions. And now 11 countries, including the United States and Gulf nations, have reportedly requested Ukraine's help in deploying that cheap counter-drone expertise to the Middle East, because the most powerful military alliance in the history of the world found itself asking the battered, resource-stretched Ukrainian defense industry for lessons in fighting cheap drones. That is not a comfortable sentence to sit with, but it is a true one. The THAAD story is ultimately not just a story about a radar that got destroyed in Jordan. It is a story about the American theory of military deterrence meeting the 21st century reality of asymmetric technological proliferation, and finding that the meeting is a lot less comfortable than the briefings suggested. Iran's tactics in asymmetric warfare have focused on weakening Washington's air power using proxy networks, drone swarms, missile saturation, and cyber operations. It has also essentially blocked the Strait of Hormuz, through which 20% of global oil and gas passes, sending oil prices above $100 per barrel, a jump of roughly 40% from before the war. 20% of global oil and gas, 40% jump in prices. Every American filling up their gas tank is paying the price of this conflict right now. Every supply chain that depends on energy cost stability is absorbing this shock right now. The war in the Middle East is not over there. It is in your wallet. It is in your grocery bill. It is in the price of everything that moves by truck or ship or plane. What America does next, how it responds to this structural vulnerability, how it invests in next-generation counter-drone technology, how it recalibrates the doctrine that led to building a shield that costs billions and can be blinded by a swarm that costs hundreds of thousands, that is the strategic question of this moment. Because the adversaries watching this conflict are not only Iran. China is watching what happens to American radar infrastructure when it gets targeted systematically. North Korea is watching. Russia is taking notes. Every actor who has ever studied the architecture of American military power in a theater where the United States has forward-deployed assets is looking at the footage from Jordan and running calculations. The age of asymmetric warfare by drone swarm has arrived. The $500 ghost swarm has bypassed the $3 billion shield. And the most powerful military in human history is being forced right now in real time to confront what that means.